Hey, Dr. Karen Can here, and yesterday's video I was talking about the 3 metaphysical checkups that you could do to see how susceptible you are to coming down or manifesting coronavirus symptoms. So we talked about the physical, the mental, and emotional. So today I thought I would give you kind of like 2 things, like little tips. I'm going to be doing this throughout the week since you're all home having nothing else to do but watching videos on Facebook or YouTube. So I'm going to give you some practical and then also some metaphysical advice as well. So just a warning, if you are into just, what the doctors say, what they say on the news, everything is physical, there's no emotional component, there's no mental component, then this video is not for you, so just skip over it. Don't even bother watching it. However, if you are the kind of person that is interested in the body, mind, soul connection and are open to things that are metaphysical, then this might be a really great video for you to watch. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the practical first. So as you can see, on March 17th, happy St. Patrick's Day. I don't have enough green outfits, unfortunately. I do have Day of the Dead cozy leggings from Canada that I got, which are super cool. But anyway, actually they're super warm. They've got fuzzy stuff inside. So there's a little bit of green there. Where was I? Oh yes, so the practical. So on the practical basis, this comes from actually ancient Chinese traditional medicine. So in Chinese medicine, I talked a little bit about this in my Spiritual Medicine Digest last week. What they focus on is really the health of the body, mind, and spirit, and are less concerned about external, like back then they didn't have microscopes, right? So they didn't have DNA testing, RNA testing. So they didn't know about viruses or bacteria per se. They would call them the evils, that came in. So, which seems really backwards and like crazy when you think about it now. Now they know about viruses and bacteria, but really they were talking about the health of the body and that body's shield, so to speak. And they call that the Wei Qi field. So the Wei Qi field is the qi or energy field that protects us from these evils or these influences from the outside world. So we would call them viruses or bacteria, things like that. Now, what's really interesting is that in Chinese medicine, they have what they would call pernicious influences. So pernicious influences were some of these quote-unquote evils. So things like too much wind, there goes my doggy, too much wind. So it's kind of windy today. So too much wind, too much cold, too much heat. There's another thing called summer heat. Too much dry, too much damp. So my body type is I tend to accumulate damp. And when I was going through fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, I actually had a lot of cold as well. So I would go outside in the cold and my joints would feel like it was going, I couldn't stand the cold. I really was super sensitive to the cold. And in damp weather, I would almost always in the past get a headache. So I was both susceptible to cold and susceptible to damp. And in Chinese medicine, what they say is for people that are cold damp or cold susceptible, damp susceptible, that you don't want to eat foods that produce cold and damp. And the best food to produce negative things with cold and damp is ice cream. Now we're talking about traditional ice cream here, but ice cream, cow's milk is damp, and then of course it's cold and sweet is damp, fried food is damp. So there are certain things in Chinese medicine that we are to avoid. So on the other hand, if you tend to be cold sensitive, things that are warming are really helpful, like garlic and ginger. Ginger is very, very helpful. Happens to be antiviral as well, but so that's really great if you have coldness. Now, I am dressed up. Yes, it is March 17th, and I know it's spring. And I just saw the other day, amidst all this craziness of coronavirus, a dad and a little girl. The little girl had winter coat on, but no hat, no scarf. Dad had no hat, no scarf, no gloves, running around the parking lot in a mall next to the Chinese restaurant. And in Chinese medicine, we would say, hey, it's cold out, there's wind, and it was very windy that day. You do not want to get that pernicious influence, those evils, into your body past that Wei Qi field. So that is why I often wear a hat. I do have a tendency in the past to be susceptible to wind. So damp, I'm much better now. I can go into a hot, humid area and not get a migraine automatically. You know, actually, I used to be sensitive to everything. So if it was too hot and, you know, and too hot, I wouldn't feel good. If it was too damp, I wouldn't feel good. If it was too windy, I didn't feel good. If it was too cold, I wouldn't feel good, blah, blah, blah. So, and now I'm much more resilient. However, I do notice that I still do not prefer wind. So there are wind points in the back of your acupuncture points here, wind points back here and on the upper thoracic area that you want to protect from literal wind. So some people love wind and they're not susceptible, and it's great. They love a fan going, not me. Air conditioning fan, forget it. Don't even come near me with that, right? So I will tend to wear a hat or a scarf or a shawl and make sure that those wind points are covered. And now, of course, if you happen to feel like, I feel like something's coming down, I feel like a cold's coming, something like that, then in Chinese medicine, we can actually purge some of that excess wind. There are acupuncture points you can use. Gallbladder 20 is one that's really reachable for me. It's easy to use back here. You can look it up on Google Images. So gallbladder 20, instead of rubbing them with my hands, you know, it's much, much easier for me just to use LifeWave phototherapy patches on them and use a white one on the right, tan on the left if you happen to have energy enhancers or ice wave. You can even use like Eon patch on one, SB6 on the other. So that actually helps to like fortify those points, the wind points. Now the other thing, because I'm an energy healer, light medicine doctor, we can actually also, and I learned through the body code actually, we can actually purge these excesses through intention and so-called energy healing. So you can literally say that you want the excess wind to be purged from you. So I can tell my body when I have excess wind, I get a stiff neck. That is my symptom. So I will muscle test, use divine muscle testing. I'll just test, do I have any excess wind or layers of excess wind? If I get a yes, and there's nothing else I need to know and do further investigation, I just go ahead and do a Topican healing directive and just release the excess wind. So it'd be like, I now command that all layers of excess wind be removed, dissolved, and uncreated from me, all versions of me, and all timelines where I exist. Thank you. Okay, so that's my Topican healing directive for excess wind. You can do the same thing for damp. So how do I know damp? Postnasal drip. Now, if I happen to eat too much, you know, well, probably any, things that are too sweet, like, I don't know, maybe a whole Japanese cheesecake. No, I didn't eat the whole thing. I did buy it because my brother's like, well, this is world famous Japanese cheesecake. It's like something you need to do before you die. And I'm like, I'm convinced, where is it, right? I went to buy it and I'm like, I can't buy a slice. No, you have to buy the whole thing. So I bought the whole thing. So luckily, I mean, I ate, I think, a quarter of it. Actually, it's a really small little round, but it was super good. So anyway, but I did notice some postnasal drip after that and a little scratchiness in the throat, and I thought, excess damp. So I tested, sure enough, at excess damp, and then I can go ahead and erase that as well using light medicine, energy healing. So you can do that for excess heat, excess wind, you know, excess damp, excess dry, excess summer heat, all those different kinds of things. Okay, so just, you know, when it's cold, coldish, wear a coat, okay? Because your Wei Qi field is that protects you from these other external influences. So wear appropriate clothing. I don't know if anybody's saying that. I know if you're in California, it's a different story, but you know, like, wear a hat, wear warm clothing if it's the winter out. I saw the other day a bunch of kids coming out of, I don't know, band camp or something. I know schools were closed in Canada, but they were coming from band practice or something. None of them had a hat on. And it was freaking cold out. Like I said, it was colder than, did I just swear? It was colder than Lake Placid, that's for sure. Or it felt colder because it was like a damp cold. But none of them had a hat on. Their coats weren't buttoned up, you know, they weren't zipped up, their necks were exposed, and I was like, okay. Now here's the thing, you can have a really strong immune system and be able to totally be okay with being underdressed, okay? However, if you are stressed out, you are not getting enough sleep, you don't have perfect nutrition, all those factors, then when you don't have that coat on, when you don't have that hat on, you know, it's a little risky, okay? So, you know, when your great-grandmother or grandmother said, put your hat on, put your mittens on, you know, zip up, she really knew what she was talking about. Either that or she knew ancient Chinese medicine. So you do want to, you know, give yourself some decent protection, whether it be from viruses or other external wind or things like that. See, look at this coat. I got this in Canada actually last year. Is this awesome or what? Yeah, it's totally awesome. Lost my dog. Well, he's in here. He's somewhere around here. So, okay, so now we're going to the metaphysical. So for today's video, it's going to be talking about the perception of this, in this case, coronavirus pandemic, that you have two main options in your perception. One that I believe serves you greater than the other. So if you are in that perception that this coronavirus thing is awful, it shouldn't happen, I can't wait till things go back to the way they were, you know, you're in resistance. And so that's when you're seeing what's in front of you as a problem. Now, you can say, well, how could it not be a problem, Dr. Karen? Like, come on. I mean, we're at home. I can't earn money. You know, whatever. Businesses are going down. People can't get through, you know, across the border. How could this not be a problem? Well, you know, a problem is really a judgment of what is. So you can do that. You can totally see it as a problem. You can get anxious and upset and resist it all you want. But guess what? It is what it is, right? So I'm not saying that I don't perceive things as problems, but the difference is I don't try to hold on to that perception too long because I know it doesn't really serve me. So what are the other options? So there's my doggy. So if you are not seeing it as a problem, well, what are you seeing reality as? Well, I'd like to say instead of a problem, see it as a possibility, an opportunity. So what are the possibilities here? Now, here's the cool thing is when you don't even know what the possibility is, but you kind of like, how do you say, assume that there is a possibility, then you are in luck. So you are in luck because, sorry, I was trying to get my battery up and running here. Okay, so you are in luck because when you can see things as a possibility, then options open up to you. And this is when human creativity comes in, human innovation comes in, generosity comes in, gratitude comes in. One of the, and I'm just going to name one today, but one of the possibilities, instead of seeing it as a problem, is that I find that so many of us are distracted by our to-do list and stresses and everything we need to do in the world, get good grades, be at the job, you know, get promotion, yada, 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 grocery shopping. But very few of us, myself included in the past, would actually carve out time to connect, really connect with our inner wisdom, our stillness, 0 point, God, source, whatever you want to call it, the peace within, okay? If you're not, I'm not religious, so, and so yes, some people are religious, they pray, but they pray in this, you know, 5 minutes of prayer a day, whatever, and they get into this prayer of supplication, please God, help me with this, help me with that, right? But the real communion with God or source is a really different state of being, literally it's a state of being. So if you're not into that habit of being in that space of possibility and connecting with source, what's going to happen is that you're going to notice that social isolation is going to feel really bad to you. Like, you won't even know what to do with yourself. And if Netflix or TV shuts off, oh my God, you'll be in a crisis because you've never been alone with yourself very long. Because what happens when you're alone is you start to think, and then your thoughts go wild and yada yada, you know. So, but what if you had a habit of daily going within and a habit of being with yourself, and that isolation is no longer there, because when you're communing with source, when you're communing with your inner wisdom, you don't feel lonely, you don't feel isolated, you actually feel loved. And this is what a lot of people are missing. And this is an opportunity, a possibility, not a problem, opportunity to connect within very, very deeply. And, you know, some of the things I teach, like transformational telepathy, things like that, I mean, it's really about connecting with others as well in that space. And you can actually do that. It's a skill and something you can practice. So I would love for you to, you know, comment below the video, share with me, how are you seeing this coronavirus pandemic as a possibility or an opportunity rather than a problem? What strategies are you using? What's your thinking process? How is it going to benefit you and your family? Be creative. I would love to hear your perception, your positive perception of how this will benefit us as a species. If you want to go that far, yeah, that would be great. So I will check in with you probably tomorrow and to see how you're doing and share a little bit more practical and also metaphysical advice related to how to stay healthy, happy, and sane during the coronavirus pandemic. Bye for now.